Hi friends, myself Archana Singh. Welcome again to my channel. In this video lecture, I am going to discuss about Anglo Saxon period. Anglo Saxon period spans from 450 AD to 1066 AD. Now question is that who were the Anglo Saxons? Anglo Saxons were basically three Teutonic tribes who came from northern Germany. They are Jute, Angles and Saxons. They were invaders. Now question raised that if the Anglo-Saxons were invaders, they were outsiders, then who were the original inhabitants of England? So Celts were the original inhabitants of England and they were called Britons. Roman invaded on Britons in about 55 BC and they ruled over there for next 400 years. But after 400 years, Roman returned back to their own countries. Why? Why Roman left and returned? Because they have to protect their own countries from outside invaders like Picts and Scots. Now after Roman left for their own countries, and after Roman, the next invaders who attacked on Britain were Anglo-Saxons. We all know Anglo-Saxons were Teutonic tribes who came from northern Germany. They are three Teutonic tribes: Jute, Angle and Saxons. Anglo-Saxons brought their own religion, belief. Anglo-Saxons were farmers, they were sailors and they were warriors. They believe in heroic deeds. That's why the heroic poetry was very popular during this period. The aim was to be immortal. The aim of Anglo-Saxons was to immortal in the song and stories of scopes and bards. They want to be immortal through his heroic deeds, through his heroism, and they want to remember through the stories of and songs of scopes and bards. Scopes and bards were the poets of this period. Anglo-Saxons were pagan. Pagan are the people who did not believe in God, but they believe in nature. They did not believe in God, they did not believe in Christianity, but they believe in nature and they worship nature. Like Anglo-Saxons, most of the invaders of this period, like Picts and Scots, Vikings, all were pagan. Pagan are the people who did not believe in Christianity, but soon Roman countries began to send their missionaries throughout the world, throughout the Europe. And after arrival of St. Augustine in 597, converted most of the countries into Christianity. Roman missionaries brought their monasteries, brought libraries, and in this way educational institutions were established and libraries were established and oral literature was transcribed into written form. Earlier we have seen that literature was orally transmitted from generation to generation. But now, after foundation of libraries, oral literature was transcribed into written form. Now we come to the Old English. What is Old English? Old English is combination of two languages. The language spoken by the Anglo-Saxon and the language spoken by the native people of England. And the combination of these two languages, Old English was formed. Now we discuss the poetic devices which were popularly used during this period. There were three poetic devices which were used: the alliteration, the kennings and the caesura. What is alliteration? Alliteration is the repetition of initial consonant sound. For example, a fair field is full of fog. A line from William Langland, Pierce the Plowman, and Pierce the Plowman is full of alliteration. Almost all poetry of Anglo-Saxon period is full of alliteration. The next poetic device which was popularly used was caesura. What is caesura? Caesura means to take a praise, to take a breath or to take a pause whilst in the middle of the particular line. For example, in Hamlet, to be or not to be, we take a breath, that is your question. This is example of caesura. Now we come to the kennings. What is kennings? Kennings is a metaphor which is used to describe any figurative description. For example, Wolf is full of kennings. For example, Shepherd of Evil is used for Grendel, Battle Sweat is used for blood, Sleep of Sword is used for death, and Well Road is used for sea. Now we come to the works written during this period. We can divide works into three parts: the heroic poetry, the Christian poetry, and the elegiac poetry. Beowulf is a fine example of heroic poetry, and it is the most popular work during Anglo Saxon period. Its author is unknown, and it is also called the national epic of England. Beowulf is written in two parts. The first part deals with the triumph of Beowulf, while the second part deals with death of Beowulf. King Hrothgar, who is the king of Denmark, summons Beowulf, who is a warrior, a fighter. Beowulf is a warrior and fighter, and he was summoned by King Hrothgar. King Hrothgar summoned Beowulf because he was terrified by a monster named Grendel. So Beowulf came and he slays both Grendel as well as his mother in the first part. In the second part deals with Beowulf grown old, and he is now a king of Geats, and he become mortally wounded to killing a dragon, and poet ends with regarding the mention of his funeral. J.R.R. Tolkien and William Morris have translated the Beowulf. The next heroic poetry of this period is Bedsith, Battle of Maldon. Now come to the elegiac poetry. What is elegiac poetry? Elegiac poetry are basically a lyric poem which mourns for loss of someone or the past. The Seafarer is a fine example of elegiac poetry. It is discussed by a sailor who remembers his past and who mourns for his past, and he is preparing for death. It is basically a moral point of view. It is discussed with a moral point of view in which it described that how to face up your own fate. It described about the solitariness, loneliness of the life. Okay, now we come to the Christian poets. Caedmon was a great Christian poet of this period, and Caedmon hymn was earliest verse poetry of the Christian poetry. It was the Venerable Bede who have ensured the survival of Caedmon hymn. Caedmon was called the Anglo Saxon Milton. So you have to keep in mind that Caedmon was called Anglo Saxon Milton. Venerable Bede, the next poet in this period, is Venerable Bede, who was also a great poet, great Christian poet. He wrote a work called Ecclesiastical History of English People. This work is a year-by-year account of this period, and in this work, Venerable Bede ensured the survival of Caedmon hymn. Venerable Bede had written this work in Latin, and it was King Alfred who have translated this work into English. There were many great kings in the Anglo-Saxon period, but the King Alfred was a king who have remembered, he has a great contribution in this period. He was a king who inspired a feeling of nationalism in the country, and he inspired the use of English language. He translated Ecclesiastical History of English People into English. He was only one prose poet of this period. King Alfred is regarded as the prose poet of this period. Now we come to how the Old English was ended, how the Anglo-Saxon period was ended. In the exam, questions often asked that who was the last king of Anglo-Saxon period, and we mistakenly answer that it was Edward the Confessor. No, it was the Harold the Godwinson. After Edward the Confessor, Harold Godwinson ascended the throne, and he was defeated by William the Conqueror, William the Normandy, who came from Normandy, France. He was defeated by William the Conqueror in the Battle of Hastings. In the Battle of Hastings, Harold Godwinson was defeated by William the Conqueror, and Battle of Hastings was popularly known as Norman Conquest, which was fought in 1066 AD. And after that, after Norman Conquest, Anglo-Norman period was started. In my next video, I will discuss about Anglo-Norman period. So, never stop learning, continue your journey. Thank you.